Hi, Cyprus.
Γεια σου, Κύπρος.
This is the meanest trick you could play on me.
We don't really get to see you in comedies that often. What made you choose this movie?
I thought it was a good movie. Obviously when I read it, I laughed and I thought it was hilarious. And I'm a big Seth MacFarlane fan. But I think overall, I just really thought it was a really good movie. And why not, want to be a part of a good movie?
Liam Neeson said that he blushed while reading for the first time some of the lines in the movie. Was that some of your reactions as well? You thought that some of the jokes were...
Pushing it a little bit? Yeah. But I think if you know Seth's work, you kind of, not expect it, but you kind of know that he goes there sometimes. And then you also understand that there's going to be a balance. It's not just going to be that. But I think that's part of why he does it, because it makes you stand up and listen.
Well, the movie is very fun to watch, to see it. I take it was as fun to make it as well?
We had a good time making this movie, yeah.
Was the weather difficult for you?
Yeah, the weather was definitely not the greatest. I mean, the Santa Fe is one of the most beautiful places you can ever go to, and you understand why George O'Keeffe went there to paint and some great other painters. But it's just quite extreme weather, from heat to cold to hail to monsoon to snow to wind. We had it all.
What was your favorite scene in the movie?
Ironically, my favorite scene in the movie is a scene that I wasn't a part of shooting. So when I saw it for the first time on a big screen, I just thought it was unbelievable. It's the chase that Clinch and his gang after Albert, when the train cuts him off. I thought that chase was unbelievable. I mean, that was like the way that camera crane comes around.
Of action.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic.
Seth also writes, directs, and produces the film. Did that make any effect on how you interacted as actors in the movie?
No, a lot of people do that. It's not the first time that I've worked with an actor who's in the movie, or as a director, or as an actor being a director. I think that's what's so great about what we do. At the end of the day, it's all about making a movie, right? And it's whatever kind of arm you want to wear that day it's great that we don't live, maybe 20 years ago was a little different, but that mold has definitely been broken, and there's a freedom to now do all of that stuff. And if you can do it and wear that hat naturally and do it successfully, that's great.
Considering the movie takes place in the 1800s, did you do any specific training for the movie? Horse riding, or with aiming, how to hold a gun or something?
I was raised in South Africa on a farm, so I've always been around horses. I love riding, so for me that was just a nice plus. The gun stuff, other than the twirling, it was pretty simple, so nothing too crazy.
Throughout your career, you established that you are a very committed actress, and you won't hesitate to go through physical changes for a role in the movie. I read that you shaved your head for the Mad Max movie you did, and you wore a wig for this one. How do you tackle these changes you undergo once you go off camera?
Once you go off camera?
Yeah.
Well, you wear a hat when you don't have any hair. I don't know. I don't think about it too much. Also, the other thing is I tend to be on location, so it's not like I'm in my home environment. I mean, obviously, when I came back, I still had a bald head, but you're not in it constantly for people to really, nobody talked about it. Nobody even knew about it. There was, I think, one photo, that blurry photo that came out, but I was in Namibia, so nobody even knew that I had it. Or when I gained the weight for Monster, nobody really saw me like that. So you're almost like living in the world of what that film is taking place, and so you can really just be in it. And it's not about Charlize, the celebrity, walking around in Hollywood. It's not hard for me to separate it, because when I'm in it, I'm really just in it. But I like that aspect of my job. It's very informative, and it helps me to do my work better, I think. So I don't have a problem.
What was in the script that made you do this movie?
Nothing. I didn't read the script. I just did it anyway.
No, I mean, I would have signed on had I not read the script.
What made you do that?
What made me do, Seth made me do it. He didn't make me do it. I mean, the idea of Seth writing, starring, and directing a Western comedy is like, it's so great. I love Family Guy.
What did you like most in the movie? The costumes, the hair?
What did I like most? Just I think it's just his perspective on the Old West. We never see that. It's romanticized every time. And this is the most unromantic perspective on this kind of Western that we've ever seen.
Seth directed, produced, and wrote the movie. Did that have any effect on you as interaction as an actor with him in the scenes you made?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I looked up to him more. I love my co-stars, and I love working with really good actors, especially ones that have been around forever and are, I'm very influenced by my co-stars. But there's a hierarchy. The director is still kind of the top, the leader, the king of the castle, and there's always this weird paternal dynamic for me in dealing with the director, or maternal, depending on the gender, obviously. But it's funny, Seth is a friend and a coworker, and he's also my director. So I'm just like, what could I just want to make him happy.
Your character Louise and Foy, Neil Patrick Harris's character, have a sequence in the movie that involves human hair. What is that all about?
It's about just making me as uncomfortable as possible. It's all about that. No, you've never seen it in a movie, so we were breaking new ground. In a comedy, I think it's just really gross. It's like it's funny, it's great because he holds his mustache in such high regard. It is so important to him, and he's such a dick that he just needs her to like, it's sexy for him. He turns him on that she's sucking on this thing that represents his money, his wealth. And then he's jerking himself off. It's so weird.
Did anything happen backstage with, I read on the internet that the mustache came off or something?
It was coming off. I mean, it's glued on, so the more I suck on it, the limper it gets. And then they come in and comb it. And it already has my... So gross. Ugh. So gross.
We've seen you in Mamma Mia and Les Miserables. You're a singer as well. Is live theater, Broadway, your next step?
Yes.
Is that an aspiration you have?
Yeah. In fact, yeah. It's in development for me. Whether or not this year, next year, the year after. I want to do theater. I don't want to sing. I don't want to do musical on stage. I'm really lazy, and I don't want to. There's something about living as a singer, that I did for a period of time in my life, 2 months, 3 months for Les Mis, where I had to be really, really dedicated to keeping my voice, my vocal cords moisturized and warm and healthy, and it's very difficult to do that. It's the right amount of sleep. It's just a very tough existence.
So no immediate plans?
Not immediate plans for Broadway, but not for musical. Stage, theater, drama.
Would you like to make the interview in a Stewie voice?
Oh my God, that's the last thing I want to do.
No, I'm just kidding. We won't do it.
Sounds like so much work.
Out of a million ways to die in the West, which one was your favorite to create?
They're all a challenge. They all involved a lot of stunt work. Probably the most complex scene was that ice block. That was the most, it took a lot of layers and a lot of very specific compositing and special effects wise. There was no computer generated animation in that. It was all practical with like layers laid on top of each other, and that was a challenge. You directed, wrote, produced, and you also starred in the movie. I want to know how challenging was it to tackle so many roles in one project? It was not as challenging as I had feared it would be. I mean, the writing and directing at this point had become, I was familiar with those parts of the process, so I could really focus all of my alertness and awareness on the performance, because that I had not. I had done a lot of voice acting and a certain amount of screen acting, but not to this degree. And that was kind of where most of my creative attention was localized as much as possible.
We rarely see the Wild West in such a comedic way. How did you come up with the idea?
I was sitting with my co-writers working on rewrites for Ted, and we were watching old westerns, wasting time, and we all realized that we all had a great affection for the genre, and all liked the idea of doing a western, and obviously we come out of comedy, so this would be a comedy western, but really started locking in on this idea of how none of us would really ever want, as much as we love the genre, none of us would want to live there for all of these reasons that we see in the movie.
Are you a big fan of Back to the Future?
Oh yeah.
How did
Everyone's a fan of Back to the Future.
How did the cameo came about?
That was something that came about while we were filming. We had really made an effort to keep all of our references of the time. So characters could make pop culture references, but they had to be references that people in 1882 would be aware of. And this was our one departure from that rule, and it was an idea that came about on set, and we called Christopher Lloyd, and luckily he was willing to do it, and so it all happened pretty quickly.
Was it difficult to learn the Apache dialect you used in the movie?
Yeah, it was. It was actually very difficult. We had an Apache translator who translated the dialogue for us, and it was so difficult to memorize another language when you don't speak that language is one of the hardest things I think I've ever tried to do. It's because there's no context that you can use to get from one line to the next. So with some of the dialogue, I actually had to use cue cards. And these massive cue cards that were lined up in the canyon in the distance.
From director Seth MacFarlane, who brought you Ted.
There are a million ways to die in the West.
Comes the smartest.
Mila Kunis.
Dirtiest.
Okay, I'm gonna close the Bible now.
Most original. Epic comedy of the summer. Seth MacFarlane, Charlize Theron, and Liam Neeson.
What is this?
Very special cookie.
You gave me the right amount, right? I don't think I took too much.
A Million Ways to Die in the West. Rated R.
What's that?
It's weather expand.
Oh.